Hey y'all, what's up? What's up? It's your girl No Mercy here. It is Tuesday night, so you already know what time it is. It's time for No Punches Pulled with me, No Mercy. Some of you probably already know who I am, but those of you that don't, my name is Brooke Millbrook. I am your host, formerly known in the fight game as Brooke No Mercy Dierdorff. I am a retired professional boxer, held the WBC lightweight title until I retired, and I was inducted into the International Women's Boxing Hall of Fame in 2022. I have been through some good, some bad, and of course, a lot of BS in the sport of women's boxing. Welcome to my platform. This is where we talk the talk and we walk the walk. We will bring out the truth in women's boxing and behind the scenes stuff that nobody knows about. We're going to talk to pioneers of the sport, past boxers, current boxers, even future boxers. We get down and dirty here and speak the truth of what takes place in women's boxing. You don't want to miss a single episode, so please make sure that you like, subscribe, and share so you don't miss us live here every Tuesday night on No Punches Pulled with No Mercy. But today, though, y'all, we're switching things up a little bit with a very special guest in the house. We're going to be discussing the female USA boxing amateur side of the sport. We're going to learn about how the amateur female side of boxing has changed and how it's coming along with growth over the last decade or so. We're going to be talking with Michael Campbell. Michael is the USA Boxing National Events and Operations Senior Manager. We're going to be discussing the growth and changes in female boxing. And we're going to be talking about a huge historic first ever in women's amateur boxing, the first ever all-female women's championship that will be held in Toledo, Ohio this coming July. Please help me welcome Michael Campbell to the show. Hey,
Thanks.
Michael, thank you so much for joining me. How are you?
I'm doing great, doing great. Thanks for having me on. Pleasure to be with you. Thanks for all that you do for the sport of boxing and for promoting it and growing it. And I'm just glad to be here and talk about some things going on in the amateur game right now.
Yes, I'm so excited to learn. I mean, it's been quite a minute since I took part in the amateur games, and I had a brief amateur career. So I can't even really say I knew a whole lot about it because I only had 15 fights before I turned pro. But I know a lot has changed since I was fighting at the gloves and doing the tournaments and stuff. So I'm super excited to hear all about it. I know when I had Zion on a few weeks ago, her dad was super excited about the stuff coming up, and we talked a bit, and he recommended me having you on about this tournament. So I'm super excited to get into like what's new in the amateur world.
Yeah, no, it's funny because I did look up your amateur. You're still in our database there. You boxed out of Illinois, yeah?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Chicago. I lived
Yeah.
in the
So
suburbs, but I fought out of Chicago. I won the nationals a couple of times. I won the Chicago Golden Gloves. Yeah, that's really my most fights were at the gloves.
yeah, big
I
tournament there. And that's where it
It was hard to
originated.
get club show fights.
Yep, yep, yep. I just got back from the National Golden Gloves, where it was awesome to see women's boxing alongside. One for one, they had finals, and that's only been a couple of years that they've even advanced to the national competition. So it was great to be a part of that
Yeah,
event. And growth in
absolutely.
all aspects. In fact, I was a ring captain, and the ring captain sitting next to me, we were co-captains, was Lizette Nelson from Minnesota. So, we have female participation in all aspects. Really, that's kind of leads into the goals of this tournament and the initiatives that we're trying to do at USA Boxing is create more opportunities and growth and more participation in the sport for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I can remember even when I fought in the Golden Gloves and the Golden Gloves Nationals. I mean, I had several fights sometimes. Sometimes I have one, sometimes I have three. It just kind of depended. But I know there was a huge difference between we always had to like kind of wait until like the end of the tournament because there were so many guys.
Your brackets are
But
smaller,
I
yeah.
hear it's kind of evening out now so that like every day there's females. There might have been one female on every day. Like that was,
It's definitely still a challenge, and there's still a lot of work to be done. But that's the problem is there isn't as much participation. You see that on the pros and the amateurs as well. There isn't the depth in each bracket, so there isn't as many competition opportunities, even at our national tournaments. you might find yourself in a bracket of one or two, or be unopposed, or never usually more than a bracket of 8. But that's the goal of this women's event is to bring everyone together in one event, so that way it's not spread out over the year. Junior Olympics, national championships, qualifiers, have everybody at one event, and subtract the men, and then have 3 rings available for us to box every day.
Yeah. Yeah, that's going to be awesome. I'm super excited about it. First, can you tell us though a little bit about your background, how you found yourself involved in boxing?
Oh, thanks for asking. So after college, I moved to Houston, and I was working offshore. I was doing an oil and gas job, and had a little free time. So I started going to local boxing events, and started to get more interested, and created sort of a media role, covering matches for websites and newspapers. That increased. Eventually, I had a magazine called Undefeated Magazine that I published there, and then got involved in the LBC. I just started covering the Golden Gloves, going there and doing interviews and going to gyms, getting to meet boxers like Conde Fountain, Juan Diaz, Ronnie Shields, those boxers, Rocky Juarez. And then the LBC asked me to get involved. I became on their board and started to referee and judge. And I found that so much more redeeming and fulfilling than the previous media role. And I could contribute a lot more and felt like I was making a difference. Eventually, I started administrating tournaments, bigger tournaments, which then took me to the nationals. Along the way, we created a group there called the Gulf Women of Strength, which was a women's committee that then brought to fruition an idea I had, which was the Texas Women's Championship. I'm really proud of the Gulf LBC. They've kept it going. They just had their 7th iteration. They'll be having their 8th Texas Women's Championships this September over Labor Day weekend. And I was really proud of that event. The first year was a 2-day show. We had ages from 9 to 62. We had masters bouts. We had heavyweight bouts. It was even televised. So I was real proud of that accomplishment. And, really a lot what we were doing on the women's national event now is built upon that structure, that platform, or that same formula that we did the Texas Women's Championship. So I started working at the Nationals to be in the tournament director and administrator. And then once our current executive director was hired, I discussed with him potentially coming on board, and he brought me on as the operations and events manager, where I think I'm celebrating about my 7th year now. Lots of national tournaments. I've done about 25 consecutive nationals in a row, and I'm just excited. Every single one is excited. We're headed to the Junior Olympics here in 2 weeks, and everyone creates new opportunities and fresh faces and relationships with coaches and boxers and growth of officials. I'm really proud of what we've accomplished at these national events. So now we're going to take that to the next stage of this all-female event. So that's nutshell my background.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. I always like to hear the backgrounds, because I didn't believe that from looking you up, I didn't see any fight experience. So it's always intriguing to figure out why people kind of went to boxing. People always ask me that, why boxing? So
that's a good question. Always, what brought us to it? I was always a sports fan growing up, but boxing was the one that drew me in the most. That's where, it's pure competition once 2 combatants get in the ring. With the support of their trainers and rest periods. And to me, that was the most exciting sport. I can remember growing up watching Larry Holmes and Jerry Cooney and Hagler Hearns and Sugar Ray Leonard and Duran, and just being captivated. And I was hooked forever. So once, so it was natural. Once I started getting involved in the sport, I wanted to get more and more into it. And, and I still continue to referee and judge today. I live in Colorado now. I still on Saturdays go to the local shows and help out there. I just RJ'd at the National Golden Gloves. So, that's my way to continue that volunteer capacity while still making this my career and my purpose.
Yeah. Colorado's nice though. When I was in the Army, I was stationed at Fort Carson, Colorado. So.
Okay, the WCAP team is there. Yeah. Coach Lev and Chris Downs leading that.
Yeah, and I always said, especially to my husband, because I met him in the service. That's where we met, is in Fort Carson, Colorado. But I always said, I didn't even know there was that was an option to box in the middle, your job in the military would be boxing. I never even knew that, or I would have started earlier.
What's been really impressive is their WCAP team is almost 50-50 male female now. Yeah. They've really grown female positions on that team and soldiers as part of that program. I used to have a roommate that was a WCAP athlete in USA Triathlon, and part of it is growth and opportunity, and they recognize the creating those roles and opportunity for them to achieve medals and greatness. So it's great to have witnessed that. And at the same time, here in Colorado Springs, we have the Air Force Academy, and the work that Blake Baldy and Eddie Wishers before him and Terry Green now are doing there. I get to go over and referee their sparring and their wing open, and they've got a huge female population as part of that program. 62 active boxers, and every time there's when they have a fight night of 11 bouts, there's 3 or 4 female bouts on every show. And then they had a woman win her 4th consecutive wing open this year. So
nice.
Even opportunities there on campus are abound. Yeah,
that's awesome. Awesome. I wish I would have known about it. My husband's like, I knew about that. And I'm like, well, you never said anything to me. I didn't start boxing until after we got out, really. I mean, I got interested in it in the service, but didn't really start until after I got out.
Brooke, that's one of the great things about the current status of female participation in boxing is your generation was a lot of crossover athletes. You grew up with different opportunities and then found boxing, whether it was through fitness or second career. But now you're seeing, even starting with the group of Marlena Esparza's group that went through that London Olympic Games. Now you're seeing the female boxers. That was their first sport. They walked into a gym at 7 and 8 years old and started competing right away. Now they still had challenges and opportunities in sticking with it, but now it's a whole different matter. Now women's boxing has the same fundamentals and the same timeline or training career, training lifespan as the men, and that's where we're seeing increased depth and deeper rankings and opportunities.
And the competition and the level of athletes is grown tremendously since even my time, because the girls are starting out young. Some of them did back then, but not very many. We all mostly got a later start, or at least teens before we started. I didn't start till I was in my 20s, but the girls now are starting just like the boys at 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, learning the sport. And sticking with it. So it's awesome to see the growth and the determination and them being able to start so young and make it a full lifetime career. Because we just didn't have those opportunities then.
We've got the National Junior Olympics coming up in a couple of weeks, and we've got a strong registration of Pee Wee females and Bantam females, intermediate females. So those younger ages, those divisions are packed. Some of them have 6, 7, 8 boxers in them. So amazing. We're definitely seeing an increase at the younger ages, and as culture changes and perceptions change amongst coaches and parents and demographics are more accepting. Those are the key factors that are increasing those opportunities. It used to be where a dad would take his son to the gym and the sister had to stand on the side. But now it's, coaches are given the same opportunities and they're training alongside each other. There's some gyms I've seen that are almost 50-50 in training. And even in Mexico, some of the local shows are packed with female bouts. There's crazy opportunities and growth in all aspects.
Absolutely. When you first got involved in the boxing business, and you started working with USA Boxing on a higher level, what was your first goals and visions with USA Boxing team for the female side?
Yeah, so most of it is to create a platform so that the coaches and boxers could thrive. I don't, like you said, I didn't box. I don't teach how to throw a punch. There's lots of coaches who have that, but I recognized early on that I had skills that maybe some were lacking in the sport, that administrative skills, organizational skills, innovations and ideas. And that's where I think if I can bring those to fruition and create that platform, create the opportunities, then coaches can come forward and do what they do. And boxers can have a platform to thrive and display their talents. So that's what I'm most proud of is, everybody's been to a show that was disorganized, that started late, or maybe something bad happened and you'd left a bad taste in your mouth. So what our goal is at Nationals is to have smooth check-in, lots of information, so that way when you're competing, when you need to be on weight. So that way you can thrive. You can get your rest, get your nutrition, and be 100% when the bell rings and give your best performance. Sure, everybody's been in a situation that maybe something could have been different in their prep that would have, and it probably was out of their control. So that's what I'm most proud of is having that ease. We start at noon sharp every single day. I'm proud of that. And then we get the bouts in. And then the work, I've done a lot of work with the referee and judges committee at USA Boxing to help improve the quality of that pool. Because without accurate decisions, then it doesn't matter. None of us need to be here. None of us need to it's all wasted effort. So we've done a lot of work, and that's a kind of a tangent to what we're talking about. But the goal is to eliminate bad decisions. And we can only do that by recruiting good people, empowering them with training, and then we evaluate them. And then we have the best ones move forward. And the ones who need improvement are counseled and retrained. And the ones that don't cut it, then there's other positions for you. You never turn away a good volunteer. But those are key factors in the success of the sport and success of the athletes and coaches in giving them those opportunities. So I'm most proud of the progress and the growth of the national tournament.
Yeah, and it's definitely come a long way. What are some of the major changes you would say that you've been a part of over the last 10 plus years or so that you've been with USA Boxing?
So it's philosophical changes. It's changing of being, I like to call them dinosaurs or old guard. This is the way we've always done it. This is set, things like the common sense rule, where if you're unopposed, you don't need to travel to step on a scale and waste money. Save those funds. I just put out the unopposed list for the Junior Olympics and said, hey, you don't have to come. Let's keep that money. Maybe come to the women's event or come to the last chance qualifier nationals. So common sense things weren't being done. So those kinds of innovations, things like the Silver Gloves didn't have female competition. Many when I first got involved. Now they're very proud of that, and they thrive, and they expanded the tournament. Same thing with the Golden Gloves. Same thing with Olympic opportunities. So those kinds of progressive changes, I would say, are by far. Then things like sanctioning policies and making sure that boxers and coaches aren't taken advantage of, and that the money that's earned from amateur boxing is reinvested back in amateur boxing. It's a nonprofit sport. It's not professional. There's no Don Kings in amateur boxing. No. And so those kinds of things that are just common sense initiatives. But we need to ensure the health of the grassroots in order for the sport to continue to thrive. I like to say that boxing doesn't exist in a classroom or a textbook. You watch all the YouTube videos you want, but boxing is taught in gyms. It's an apprenticeship. It is it sits inside of trainers, and it was put there by their trainer, probably as a boxer. And now those boxers now harbor that knowledge that sits in all those boxers and trainers of America and the world. And so giving them opportunities to express that and build that and to display what they've worked on and what they've achieved, what they've tried to accomplish every night in the gym, those thankless nights of sweat that nobody notices or acknowledges. That's what my main goals and what I'm really proud of.
Yeah, and that's so true. And most people, if you don't, either you know or you don't know. One or the other. It's either you know or you don't. But a lot of things happen in the gym. We'll just put it that way. Tell us about this historical first ever all-female women's championship that's coming up in July, so it's not too far off, in Toledo, Ohio. I'm so excited for it. Explain to us the tournament and like how it's going to work and all the good stuff about it.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a lot of aspects to that, but let's start with how it evolved, why it's happening. In 2017, 2018, USA Boxing redefined its strategic plan. And part of that was the growth of female participation in all aspects, boxers, coaches, and officials. And there's been various initiatives to do that. And one of them was to create an all-female event. And we'll talk about the reasons why. And so then COVID happened, and that kind of set it back. And like I said earlier, the Texas Women's Championships kind of provided that structure. So I knew how to do it. I had the vision for it. So it took a little while. The USA Boxing Foundation gave us a grant to put on this event. So thankful to them. But in my conversations with different destinations, I met with Destination Toledo, and I floated that idea, that concept. And it was, two ships passing in the night that needed each other. The stars aligned and came together. They have a terrific city council and county a comptroller, awesome mayor there, that all saw the value of boxing in their local community. And they saw that this is an event that they wanted to bring there. And it takes all those factors to come together to make an event land such as that. So of course, women box in every one of our tournaments, but they make up about 20% of our national championships, our JOs, which is interesting because it's only about female membership is about 12% of our membership. So that shows that they will come to national tournaments because there's opportunities there. And we all know that there's lack of opportunities locally. Some of the bigger cities, there are a good matchups, but it's difficult for a female boxer, especially in the younger ages, find local matches. The example I use is, like, let's say you have two twins, a male and a female, and they walk into a gym at 8 years old. Well, by the time they're 12, the boy will probably have about 40 matches, and the girl will be lucky to be 7 or 8 bouts. And they would both go to every event. They both on every single roster. And it's just lack of opportunity. So then what I was finding was that the Western qualifier, Eastern qualifier, JOs, is you got to be economic of where you go, and you're going to pick an event. And so that was diluting our pool even more. So I thought, hey, if we create one event and we have the ring available all the time, like you said, they don't have to wait 3 or 4 days before they can get in the ring. Then it was going to create a better platform. And then we'll put no minimums on it. Everybody's welcome. Novice boxers, you can come get your first match. Masters bouts. There's gonna be opportunities for all, and we're gonna do matchups. We're gonna do tournament brackets. We'll do a little bit of everything. We'll do open workouts. And the idea there is to go home better than you came. And that's what happens at national tournaments. Just being around that higher class of athlete, kind of like you thrive off of the other boxers in your gym and they make you better. When you're in that pool of talent, when you're around that, when you're witnessing these other boxers, you're picking up little things. Even as a referee, you're watching other referees and you're picking up things. You get critiques. So the goal is every single person, from their, even administrators, even the ring announcer, even the doctors, the boxers, coaches, and officials will go home better than they were when they got there. So that's the overall theme and goal of this event. Sure, we're gonna give some awards, and we're gonna give some rankings points and crown some champs, and that's important. But that's just one aspect of it. The aspect is the more important part is the camaraderie, the improvement, the networking, and creating a fun atmosphere for everyone to thrive. So that's kind of how we put together the schedule and why we brainstorm lots of ideas, and again, sticking with that theme of why it's in the strategic plan. It isn't just, hey, we want more matches, we want more members. No, it's about growth in that opportunity. And let's talk about what drives the overall amateur boxing, and that's Olympic greatness, right? It's Olympic medals. I never knew that until I got here to USA Boxing, and I sat in on the USLPC speech, and he said that it's our job to inspire Americans through Olympic success and greatness. I was like, wow, that's actually what the law says. That's how you created the USLPC.
Well, it makes sense.
And that drove it home. And that's what happens when a young girl sees the first Olympics, Marlena Esparza win a medal, Clarissa Shields, and then Michaela Mayer, Queen Underwood was in that first group as well. They feel inspired, and they said, wow, there's opportunities. Well, that's the whole idea. Seeing more opportunities on television. Now Clarissa's headlining main events, and Katie Taylor, Amanda Serrano, that inspires. So that's the idea of this, is to inspire each other there at the event, to send everyone home better. And along with that, most tournament, the reason this tournament's gonna be a lot different is, most events you go to, you lose. Okay, thank you for coming. You can watch. Here's your ticket to sit in the audience. No, this one's going to be everybody comes back the next day, and because when we have this, we've created this platform, and that's why this is the first, because this will create a pool for us to be able to do multiple matchups from. We've already got close to 90 boxers registered, and we're 60 out. I wasn't expecting to have 20 or 10 by now. And that's we have an additional 20 foreign boxers that have already started the process of getting registered. So my original goal was 400, I thought was way too ambitious, but it looks like we might be able to get close to 400 boxers. That's phenomenal for a women's event. Yeah. So that's going to afford us a lot of things that we couldn't do in Texas Women's Championship or local events. Those are matched bouts typically. You find the most appropriate matchup for everyone, and we're going to do match bouts for sure. We're going to find every boxer will have the most appropriate matchup for them on day one. So everybody will get that match. Then we'll create brackets, put everybody in a bracket just like you would a normal tournament. And the winners will advance and eventually get to the championship night. But the ones who lose in the bracket, more match bouts. We'll put you back in another list. You might have to box the same one depending on what the most appropriate matchup is. But the idea is everybody, I can't say everybody's going to box every day. That's ambitious. But my goal and my original goal was everybody gets at least 2 batches, which is already a great improvement. But I think it's feasible that everybody will get 3 or 4 bouts to go before they go home. And maybe potentially more when you include some of the other opportunities. And so that's aligned with the same theme. That's more opportunities for coaches to coach, for officials to officiate, and for boxers to keep improving every day. Most of our events, we have a practice ring, we have a sparring ring because the schedule is packed. Everybody's got to train to stay tuned, and when you have 1,000 boxers at a tournament, that's a great pool to spar with, right? And do that.
Absolutely.
No sparring and ring at this event. No sparring at this ring because there won't be any sparring because everybody's boxing every day.
That's awesome, and I can tell you from experience, for me personally, never had that opportunity in the amateurs, obviously. But I did have the opportunity to fight on an all-female card in California at one time. And I can't remember, there was probably maybe 8 or 9 bouts, but they were all females. It was all females. And it was just so exciting because one, there were several females on the card that I had always wanted to meet because, I met Chevelle Hall back there. We became really good friends. Terry Blair, we became really good friends. Melissa Hernandez was on the card. Melissa McMorrow. I mean, the list goes on and on. How many there?
Legends. Those are all legends.
Yeah, legends. But and it was at the beginning of my career. It was probably like my 3rd or 4th fight, maybe. So it was early on in my career, and these girls had been fighting for a long time. But it was just so exciting to be a part of an all-female card because they very rarely happened. And then to have all these great females there that I always looked up to and watched, to be able to meet them and then sit there and watch their fights. Because we, as you know, and everybody knows, we didn't make money back then. A lot of times we lost money by the time you went there and missed work and everything else. But it was just so exciting so I couldn't I didn't have the money to go fly out to cards that they were fighting on in other states or countries. It was very rarely aired on TV. So you didn't even usually just know who won. You really didn't even get to see the fights. So it was just so exciting. And you learned so much because they're females. Not that you don't learn from the guys, but it's just more intriguing to sit and watch females and be able to learn off of things that other females are doing, and seeing the stuff. And then even having other females that came that were local that, wanted to meet us. So it was just an all around great experience. And I did get to spar with Chevelle and some of the other girls because we were out there early enough on. So, I mean, and it's great just to get that experience and to see all of that and just be around other female athletes. So that's just super exciting.
Those events are essential and important. And events like Beautiful Brawlers and the work that Bianca does are so important because think about how many lives you touched, even ones that weren't there that maybe saw some information about it and realize that there's opportunities. When they're thinking about what sports that they want to participate in, and realize that, hey, I can go to a boxing gym and train, and how many boxers then ended up following that path. So that's what's important. It's going to take a generation or multiple generations to continue that growth. But now, like when they first introduced boxing in the Olympics, and it's amazing that it took until London Olympics before women were allowed to compete. With only 3 divisions the first year.
I know.
And now it's 7 and 6. It's equitable. And so it's those things that are going to then create federations to invest in those programs and to create more opportunities. And that's based on the work that you guys, the pioneers, did early on. It's amazing lineage and creation.
Yeah. That was actually, and that was televised. That was my first televised fight too. It was on the Best Damn Sports Show, period. You remember that? That was
I do remember that show. Yeah.
So that was exciting to be a part of that whole thing. But speaking of the Olympics, from my understanding, and I'm pretty sure this is accurate, but this will be the 2024 Olympics will be the first time that we have all female weight classes. Correct?
The weight classes are in flux. I think there's 13 men's and 12 women's. And then
Okay.
because of the medal count, they reduce it to the Olympic game. So that's what would compete in a world championships. So in the Olympic games, they do 7 men and 6 women's weight classes. And then they
Okay.
picked them according to, kind of where the boxers were and the most boxers. But that's where it
Okay.
is. We're going, 2028 is in Los Angeles, and we're pushing for 8 and 8 in 28.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, we're getting there. I mean, it's better than
Yep.
3. I can say it's better
No,
than 3 weight
absolutely.
classes because I know people that were waiting for the Olympics, but then were nowhere near any of the weight classes. So it wasn't even feasible to try to squeeze into one because they were just too small or too big.
Yep.
So
And right now, the largest competed in the Olympics female weight division is 165 pounds. And so here's give a little campaign. We have a shortage of women's boxers above about 146, especially in the younger divisions. And that's where, hey, coaches and female boxers out there, you're watching, that's where we need to recruit. That's where we need more participation. Build your athletes. Right now, Naomi Graham is our top 165, and there's a big gap after her. There's hardly any girls in that weight in the youth and even the junior divisions. Maybe that's where some of those crossover athletes come from. But, that's where we really need to recruit and grow. There's a huge growth opportunity there.
yeah, absolutely. Well, I suppose it's probably kind of difficult for the younger girls because they're naturally not like fully developed yet to get to that weight. So it's
They're
harder.
playing other sports, a lot of them, other opportunities. But now, it comes from that 8 and 8. Once those weight classes are contested and they see that they're on TV,
Yeah,
in the
they might be
Olympics,
like, I think I could
absolutely.
do that for sure.
Yeah.
So from just like different things that I've heard and stuff, talk to us a little bit about how much the USA and the world is leaving, because I've heard that they're leaving the IBA and that as of now, the 2028 Olympic Games are off the agenda due to the corruption. USA joining a new sanction with the world. Can you tell us a little bit about that? And is it pretty accurate, or do you think the 2028 Olympics will make a comeback?
Boxing is one of the original sports, and I think boxing will be contested in Tokyo in 24 and in Los Angeles in 28. The key factor to consider for 2028 is the organizing committee in Los Angeles. Boxing is huge in the culture in California and in Los Angeles, and the organizers want it, so they're going to definitely push for it. But how do we get there? So that's your question. Things are very fluid and they're changing daily. I see headlines every day. There's something new. Some countries were suspended by IBA yesterday. So the United States, USA Boxing has left the International Federation, IBA, and the reasons for that are varied. Back in 2019, IOC suspended IBA because of repeated problems in finance, in leadership, and many other factors that they outlined that they didn't act to improve. So this didn't just start. This has gone back for a long time. In fact, there's something called the Lalovic Report, which finally kind of uncovered the corruption in decision-making and in decisions and the way RJ management was being handled, signaling, and it wasn't so much bribery, but wrong decisions. The Michael Conlon thing in Reno really brought this up to fruition. But I like to say, what about the lost generation? The Lalovic Report illustrated that there was corruption, that there was institutionalized cheating that was going on and continued to go on. And it didn't just start in Rio. So it confirms many, many bad decisions happened. So what about all the boxers that went through that time? Everybody remembers Roy Jones and Floyd Mayweather's bad decisions, but those were in medal matches. So they were very prominent. What about, then they got good at it and they started knocking our Americans out in the preliminary rounds. Everybody says, no, we haven't won a gold medal since Andre Ward and Shakur Stevenson got a silver, of course, Clarissa. But what about all those boxers? Errol Spence went through that and was eliminated in the preliminaries. He's one of the best boxers in the world. Charles Cromwell, Gary Antoine Russell, all these guys were screwed in bad decisions. And that happened during that period. So finally, enough is enough. You're not going to fix your debt, your leadership problems. USA Boxing, along with some other countries, so it's called the Common Cause Coalition, decided that, hey, it's very important that we place Olympics at the forefront of amateur boxing. So a new organization has been created called World Boxing, which hopefully will grow and membership will grow in it, and eventually put us in a position to ensure boxing is solid in the Olympic Games. So, of course, my career depends on it, so I'm very faithful. But I believe that we're on the right path, we're in the right direction, and eventually all parties will come together, and we'll make sure boxing is done for the right reasons. That that there's accuracy in decisions, that there isn't corruption and national federation coercion, and that it can ensure the confidence, and that we can continue to inspire the next generations, and that will feed into the pros and ensure the longevity of our sport.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at some point in time, somebody had to take a stand, especially at such a young age, even male or female at this point, working so hard for the Olympic Games, waiting to turn pro, to have an opportunity in the Olympic Games, to just put all that work and effort into training and preparing for that one moment that you've been waiting for your whole life, to have it stripped and robbed of you, even though you won the fight, or that it was total BS and you just got ripped of your dream. And then you go pro at that point, but still, that was like a huge goal and accomplishment that you could achieve, for it just to be stripped away for nothing over just some controversy and some corruption that's going on. I mean, and it's sad. It happens in pros all the time. We talk about bad decisions and stuff all the time. It is what it is, and that's what I always tell people. I had lots of fights that everybody felt like I won, and I lost decisions over, their hometowns or other overseas or whatever the case may be. And I'm just like, you know what? I've learned to come to terms with it.
Yep.
Boxing is boxing. And
at the end of the day, I think we all signed up for a subjective sport. We signed up to be evaluated by humans. It's not an analytic sport. Sorry, it's not. Yeah. So it's not like basketball where the ball goes past the rim and you register points. This is, you're convincing a human being that you're better, that your talent is better, more akin to a performance or a talent show or a concert than it is a sport. So we have to remember that it is entertaining. We need to entertain, and we need to display our talents to convince the judges. So, but human beings have opinions, and we're trying to convince them of it. So that's what makes the controversy of the sport, and it also kind of makes the buzz. And everybody's still talking about all the fights that happened last weekend. It isn't a bad thing, in my opinion.
It's good. It keeps it going, keeps the spark, keeps it in the conversation and in the now. We were just talking about it before. But yeah, I mean, I'm still getting messages on what do I think about the fights. So hey, it's good. It's good for boxing. Good for boxing. Explain to us the information on USA pulling fight limits on females in the national tournaments to grow females in the sport.
I'm sorry, pulling fight limits? What do you mean?
Well, because there is on females in the national tournaments, the things that you're doing to grow females in the sport.
Okay, so matchups are typically made by age, weight, and experience. But that's a little more difficult on the female side, because there's disparities. So that's why the structure of this tournament is going to be such where we do match bouts the first day, so everybody gets that appropriate matchup. And then we'll create experienced and inexperienced brackets depending on the quantity of athletes registered in that particular age weight division. But what we've done for nationals in the last year is, instead of having qualifiers that lead to a progressive tournament that qualify you for the national championships, we've put a minimum bout standard. So we say that you must have so much experience before you can compete in a national division. And the reason is because you expect a boxer to train at a local gym, to get with an experienced coach, and then to find local bouts, then go out of their state and get regional bouts before they come to nationals. We always say no one should fight for a belt in their first bout, right? That no one should go to nationals and have the first bout. This tournament will be a little bit different because it's a creation of opportunities. But so that's a little bit about what that's about. Is what we do is we put a minimum bout experience and a minimum bout winning percentage, to qualify for nationals.
Yeah, absolutely. Talk to us a little bit about the development of the female panel nationally. You were talking about the female panels all across female boxing nationally to grow respect, integrity for women, and to continue to grow the sport.
Yeah, so there's like what we talked about the strategic plan. We want to grow it in all aspects. Of course, the obvious one is boxing opportunities in the ring, but there's always a push for female inclusion on all of our committees and on our board of directors. I'm very proud of Danielle Perkins. She's one of my favorite people in the whole world. Of course, I lived in Houston, so I'm a little biased, but she's a world champion, world amateur champion. Had an amazing performance to do that. Blew out her knee the previous year and came back and beat the girl who won the world championship because of her injury. So and she was a crossover athlete from basketball. But anyway, she serves on our board. She's there with Franchon Cruz, and there's a few other female athletes on there as well that have been there over time. So it's important to have their voice on the board of directors to influence the direction and the decisions. And then we have, of course, the women's committee, the great work that Christy Halbert did. She was a pioneer of women's boxing and team coach in London. Yeah. Now Jackie Atkins is the chair of that committee. I served on that committee for a while before I came to the national office. So these are all very important. Christy Albert's also been on the International Federation's women's committee. These are important to whenever there's a rule change or a opportunity for a tournament or competition change, to get their input and to make sure that we're considering all aspects of a matter and of an issue. So these roles are vital. And then every LBC, around the country has athlete representation, and they usually have that requirement of one male, one female. Again, to represent that group and to bring their voice into decision making in those capacities. So not just in the ring, but also on committees and influence policy. We also have really pushed for this all-female event to get all of our female officials there. And we're welcoming all levels of officials. There's a seat for everyone. We'll put the best officials and best referees in the toughest bouts, of course, but there's going to be opportunities for growth for all levels, pathway officials, level 1 officials. And I'm proud that our first invite came up with 30 women level 2s and level 3 officials. So these are ones that work national tournaments already that want to be a part of this event. So that shows that there's even more opportunity after you retire to then not just also coach, but not everybody can be a coach or has that time commitment, but also to be involved in technical roles, administrative roles, and then get in the ring and referee. We need to have more women referees around the world, both at the upper levels of amateur boxing and locally, as well as the top levels international. So opportunities all over.
There is I only had one fight my whole entire career, amateur or pro, that I had a female referee. It was in New York, and it was Sparkle Lee. I'm sure you're familiar with Sparkle Lee. Did one of my fights that was in New York. But she's also the only one you really see today that does like the female big cards. She does like, all the big fight cards on the female side for the pros. But yeah, she's like the only one I think I've ever seen televised. And that's, for the female fights. So yeah, that's awesome to hear that there's so many, because I didn't even realize there were that many female referees and judges. And even when you hear the judges, sometimes there's female judges, but not a lot of times. So that's awesome that you guys are pushing for that. That's a huge step to get more women involved, especially for the women. It just makes you feel a little bit, I don't know, maybe more comfortable knowing there's so many females that got your back. Well, the guys got your back too, but it's different coming from a girl, I guess. Michael Orr chimed in and wants to know what has been the biggest obstacle you faced getting this tournament together?
So the obvious ones is I wish this would have happened 3 years ago, but COVID, it kind of changed budgeting and membership was down. So we weren't really able to expand. We had to contract our national tournaments. So the timing has just come to the alignment for it to happen now. So that was the fundamental delay in that. The biggest obstacle has been creating something that hasn't been done before and then conveying that information. Why are we doing it this way? Why isn't it a bracket? Why isn't it a normal tournament? Because we've always done it that way. So conveying that, and this platform is really helping me do that. But the idea of this event is to improve in all ways, but to create opportunities for that. So we've expanded our coaches education program at USA Boxing. We now have bronze and silver certifications in addition to the intro green level. And so now we have a lot of female coaches of those levels. I want to bring them all together and create an open workout for all the boxers who are there and their coaches to learn from what those teachings were. And the coaches education is based on the work of Billy Walsh and the high performance teams. So really, we want to teach that, because now if we can take that success of Billy Walsh at the international level and then emanate that to our national coaches and then put it into the grassroots, and that's going to take that knowledge and emanate it all the way down. So things like that, conveying why are we going to do a day that's just an open workout has been a challenge. And then, the obvious ones is finding the right amount of funding to do this activity or that activity. The city of Toledo is very proud of their baseball team. A lot of history there, the Toledo Mud Hens. And it so happens that on our check-in day, they got a home series that Saturday and Sunday. So the stadium is right next to the convention center, the Glass City Center, where we're going to be. So they've offered us the opportunity to showcase our event during their baseball game. So kind of like we do in the Junior Olympics with an opening ceremonies and a parade of athletes, we're going to do that where all the boxers and their coaches can come muster at the convention center. And then we're going to do a parade around the block. It's going to come in the left field fence, come onto the baseball diamond while we play a hype video on the scoreboard, and then have a dignitary or somebody throw out the first pitch.
Yeah.
So that's going to, again, kind of raise the status of their awareness in the community. And so getting the community involved has been key. And that's always a big challenge everywhere we go. But that's what's been great about this relationship with Toledo. And then we got a few other surprises planned along the way. And I want to do a kind of a mixer at the end where we can kind of all let loose and celebrate the week that we had. So we're going to have a gala or a ball, a dance at the end with the DJ.
That'll
have
be
a little
fun.
fun.
That'll be super fun. The kids are going to love that for sure, especially the younger ones. Explain to us, I know that there's been a lot of difference with the extended times on the matches for females. So talk to us a little bit about extended times finally happening for the female side.
So all 17 and over boxers do 3 3-minute rounds, male or female. It's the same. Now, it may change a little bit for the lesser experienced ones, especially at a local show, depending on constraints there. But at the national level, 3 3-minute rounds across the board. You have the timer set at 3 minutes in the gym, right?
Yep.
Everybody's training the same 3 minutes. They shouldn't go to the competition and their body clock says, hey, why is that round done? So youth and elite divisions all box 3 3-minute rounds. The juniors are still boxing 2 minutes. But what I'm really happy about is this year we increased for the Pee-wees. We're only boxing 1-minute rounds. They're now boxing 1.5 minutes through age 12, and then 13 through 16 are boxing 2 minutes. Whereas they were the intermediates were boxing 1.5 minutes previously. And to be honest with you, as a judge, I wanted that, because a 1-minute round, especially in between Pee-wee boxers where they're wearing the same size gloves, same weight gloves, there's no backing up, there's no impact. So it's difficult to score those. So we're not putting the judges in a good position. And then the boxers come for 3 minutes. All the work that they've done, it's taken them 6, 8, 12 weeks to find a match. And they get in there for 3 minutes. So we've even increased the time links for our Pee-wees, our bantams, our intermediates, and our youth to full round links. But let's face it, a 2-minute round is more of a sprint, and 10 2-minute rounds, it doesn't display the strategies that happen in a 12 3-minute round fight, and that's not fair. What it's doing is it's causing coaches to alter their training, alter their game plans, and that's not the sport. That's creating two sports. This needs to be a singular sport, and so we need to push for more of that. Before I joined USA Boxing, I managed a few female fighters, and we always pushed for 3-minute rounds, even in a 4-round fight. And we got it a few times, but that's, I talked earlier about dinosaurs, right? And a lot of state commissions are dinosaurs. We'll say it, right? They're a bunch of old white-haired men, and they're not on board with this. They can't see this. And then a lot of doctors are on the commissions which decide this, and they think it's a safety concern, but it's actually the opposite. It's exactly. So this needs to be talked about. If the top boxers would talk about this constantly, then change will happen. But
Yeah.
yeah, on the amateur side, it's already been 3 minute rounds for quite a few years now.
Yeah, which is nice. I know a lot of people ask me all the time about the 3 minute rounds. And do I feel like we should be fighting the same as the men in 3 minute rounds? Yes. But here is why, me personally, and I've said this before, I would never sign a contract for a 3 minute round unless the pay was equal to, okay, so take a male boxer that's the same level, experience, record, ranking as me, and then I'm going to fight a 3 minute round, whatever that guy is getting paid. I'm not signing the contract unless I get paid the same, because especially back in my time, we already didn't make money. So there was absolutely no way I was going to fight longer when I was already getting screwed over with how much I was making as it was. I wasn't even coming close to what the men were making. I mean, my WBC title in Mexico against Mia St. John, one of the biggest names in the sport, $4,000. And I was there over a week. Men make $40 million for the same freaking belt.
But
So
Mia probably made more than that.
oh, I'm sure she was the fight. I mean, she was
So
the
Brooke,
fight.
I don't
I
disagree
never got
with
to
you.
ask her that question, but I need to know. Like, I would love to know what she made.
So Brooke, I think that we're combining two issues there. The economics of the sport isn't dictated by the round length. That's dictated by the opportunities in the talent pool and things like that. So when we, and I agree with you, women need to get paid more, certainly.
Yeah.
But when we say that, then we're holding up the 2 minute, 30 minute round transition.
Yeah.
And we're putting an obstacle there, an anchor on it. The
Yeah.
economics need to be determined by the pool and the opportunities and how many and what they bring. So you see like Caressa or Amanda that are on television now, they're making $1 million because they are headlining, they're pulling the crowd, and that's what determines that.
Yeah, they should definitely
salaries.
do 3 minute. I mean, those would be huge steps for women's boxing because they've already hit the plateau of one of our obstacles. Now you bring the other one in, and then it'll trickle down for the future fighters.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So yes, they need to start putting that into place. It was just different back in my day. We didn't, you could only be like, oh my gosh, let me just take another one from behind, one after another. But yeah, now would be the time for them to start pushing it because the women are starting to get a little bit more closer to being equal with the men. So yeah, they should start pushing for it for sure. I think that the first Serrano Katie Taylor fight, they were pushing for 3 minutes for the first one. I don't remember, but I remember
it can't be one fight here or there because then it has to be a total culture change because it affects your training, your preparations, and the gym time. Your strategies, and you don't want to change back and forth. So it just needs to be. So I don't know. Maybe someone needs to go to the ABC convention or really push for it through some of the bigger commissions. But I don't know the strategy there. I'm focused on the amateurs.
Throwing that out there. Talk to us though about the high performance teams starting in the youth divisions.
Great. So that's what's determined at the national championships. So the junior and the youth boxers that win there get invited to training camps where they're evaluated, and then if there's competition opportunities, then they advance internationally. The elite divisions handled a little bit different because we have resident teams that stay there, and sort of it's kind of like the way the pros work, where you have your champ, and then everybody else is kind of working to be contenders and get in there and challenge them. So there's great opportunities, and I had the privilege to be at the recent elite training camp and referee some of the test matches, and to see that talent in there. I got to referee Rashida Ellis and Morel McCain. I got to referee Stephanie Simons and Yoselin Perez and Jewelry Rodriguez. I'm sure I'm leaving out some amazing boxers, but just to be in the ring with that level of greatness as they're going to progress and influence youth and be on television and have great careers was phenomenal. But yeah, the talent is quite amazing. We're kind of recharging right now. We kind of got a little longer in tooth. Women stay amateur a little bit longer because less opportunities as pros. So that's why we had like a Naomi Graham or Jenny Fuchs stuck around a while and then turned pro a little bit later. So now we're kind of recharging, and you're seeing a lot of these youth boxers. One to keep your eye on is Alyssa Mendoza, has been amazing run from Boise, and I mean, they used to drive 11 hours just to get sparring, and much less come to national tournaments. And to see her last year in Tulsa at the National Golden Gloves, her bracket, she won 5 matches to get to that title. I mean, that's the depth of competition there, and stopped a few girls, and is just has a motor, and it's just busting through opponents. And then recently medaled internationally, but to be a part of her training camp was amazing. So yeah, the high performance team is thriving, recharging a little bit. But then what you're going to see at this JOs that's coming up, and then the women's event in Toledo is as kind of that next generation that's coming up through the juniors and youth division. And the talent is deep in the U.S.
You also, so with the high performance team, though, you also, to my understanding, have the high performance camps in, I think, Chula Vista, Cali,
Oh,
Denver, Colorado, starting in the
yep.
junior divisions, right?
Yeah. So last year, for the first time, we created a regional training center. The old Olympic Training Center that was in Chula Vista, I think it's been rebranded, but Chula Vista created a boxing gym for us, and we had the junior team went to camp. So those winners in December, the number ones, they were invited out, and then the brackets were filled up, I think, to 4 boxers, depending, plus or minus, where other boxers who were ranked could register and go to that camp. And it's about investing in yourself, and your coach and your parents investing in you to create that opportunity, again, to get out there in that pool, get good sparring, get evaluated, and get on the radar of those coaches. And that was a very successful event. They're going to do that again. The juniors will have an opportunity to go to Chula Vista and sign up for that camp. And then there's various training. I think the youth are in camp right now, getting ready for competition. There's various opportunities at different training centers.
Yeah, which is phenomenal. Because I don't know if we had any of that stuff back when I was fighting amateurs, but if we did, I didn't know about any of it. I don't even know about any of that stuff. If we had anything, I don't even think there was. I know my coach that I was working with when I very first started took one girl to Colorado for something. He didn't take me, and I was pretty upset because I had just won the gloves. So I don't know why I got left behind, but they went to some big tournament in Colorado.
Yeah, they often back then had tournaments at Fort Carson, downtown Colorado Springs, at the OTC.
So that
was their nationals. Those are a little bit smaller events. Now we move it around the country, and they used to go to Marquette back then a lot up in northern Michigan.
Okay.
Yep.
But other than that, I didn't know of anything besides like the gloves or the nationals. That was about the extent of my amateur experience. We have Fistiana Fights. Glad I found your channel. I'm glad you found my channel too. I appreciate you for tuning in, and retro boxing and documentaries. Thanks for joining. If you guys have any questions for Mike, let me know, and we will make sure that he answers it for you. Let's see. What can we expect to see more of in the female amateur world in the future?
Oh, good question. So let's talk a little bit of controversial topic here. This in 2022, we introduced something new that a lot of people haven't gotten on board with, which is fine. If you don't want to do it, that's fine. But we talk about lack of opportunities. It was extremely apparent in the 8, 9, and 10-year-old female boxers. I don't know for what reason. Maybe it was taking a while. Maybe they're doing other sports. But the Pee Wee division was lacking competition and bouts. So what we introduced last year was the Pee Wee co-ed division, where males and females could be matched to each other the same way you would make a normal match based on age, weight, and experience. The theory there is that at that age, pre-puberty, there's really not much difference in muscular development. And in other sports, you see that already. High school wrestling, for example, when girls wrestling was introduced in high schools, they had to compete on boys teams in a lot of states because there wasn't competition. So they've already been wrestling. They compete against each other in judo, jiu-jitsu, and other combat sports. So, and then in the gym, males and females spar all the time. Competition is a little different. I'm not saying it's the same as sparring. So we introduced the Pee Wee co-ed division in 2022. I don't have stats for you in 2023. I haven't run those yet. But in 2022, we had about 26 Pee Wee co-ed matches contested. In some areas, I'll be honest, it didn't take off and was a little slower. Probably the people who were approving matches didn't want to see them. And then I'll hear from a lot of coaches, no, I won't do that. And a lot of them give the reason of it's not good for the boy as much as, less than they think it's not good for the girl. So whatever, that's fine. We'll just keep moving on, and your preconceptions will fade as we continue down this road, and you'll be on board eventually. But it represents progress. So we had about 26 matches, and the statistics showed that approximately 1/3 of the bouts were won by females.
Yeah, I was going to say, I watched lots of female, the young kids. I mean, 5 to 10-year-olds, probably 5 to 12, maybe 10, 12, on Facebook, because I have a lot of boxing feeds, amateurs, all of it. But 90% of the sparring matches that I see with little young boys and girls, the girls are winning. I don't know. Maybe they're afraid it hurt the boys' feelings.
I don't know. But any of those ideas about disparity or embarrassment, those are ideas that are put there by the coaches and the parents and the adults. Kids aren't born with those conceptions. You're emanating your own views towards them. Let's stop doing that. That's akin to misogyny or racism. Let's not push that. Let's say, hey, look, just like you could put your 15-year-old experienced boxer in with your 12-year-old beginner, because they work with each other. And it's the same thing that happens in male-female sparring. They work with each other. But this is a little different. This is competition, and this was to create more competition opportunities. And of those 26 bouts, there's a few that I really wanted to highlight. There's one girl who went 3-0 in her co-ed bouts, and I started to dig a little deeper into her. And she was 1-1 in bouts against females before those 3, and then she beat 3 boys in 3 consecutive bouts. And then she went to nationals, and she won a national title in her next. So I can't say it's a direct correlation, but I could use that anecdotal evidence to say, without those 3 opportunities, she goes into nationals with a 1-1 record.
Yeah.
And maybe doesn't do as well. Maybe she doesn't have that level of confidence that propelled her. So it's case studies like that prove that this will be successful. And again, it isn't about sexism or any societal ideas. It's 100% about creation of opportunity and getting bouts, getting experience. What we talked about earlier, coming to fruition, all that work that you've done in the gym, just to be disappointed as they don't have any girls in my age group.
It's the same thing in the amateurs, pros, or whatever. And I mean, I've gone to amateur shows, trained, and then they don't show up, or they don't make weight, or they, whatever the case. But same thing in the pros. I mean, you put in that work and that time, that blood, sweat, and tears that people always talk about is a real thing. If you're an actual fighter, just to get there and have all that work be for nothing, it's like devastating. It literally is devastating. Like, you gotta, it has to mean something.
It's defeating. It drives boxers away from the sport. If they don't get opportunities to compete, then why are they going to work hard every night?
Exactly.
So, Brooke, I got another topic that's controversial. I need your opinion on. My opinion doesn't matter on this one. So I often get floated this idea that women boxers in amateur boxing should be allowed weight allowance at the scale when they have their menopause, their time of the month, their period.
Yeah.
So, and then I've heard contradicting points of view on this, that, hey, that's part of your preparation. That's part of your planning.
Yeah.
Now, this is where a lot of the education comes in with male coaches and not understanding, not tracking cycle. But especially if you've got a female pro, you better know where we are and where we're going to be when that bout comes up, and it's part of your weight management. So to me, it just presents another challenge in weight management. But I want to hear the overall thoughts.
It does, for sure. I personally never had any issue with it because I fought at what I walked around at. So I never, one time I went down in weight where I really had to lose weight. But so I never faced that personally, because whatever I was walking around at, that was the weight class I chose, because I didn't want to put my body through the brutal dehydration and all of that stuff that comes along with dropping 20, 30 pounds to get to a lower weight class. I was comfortable fighting what I walked around at, but I know lots of people that do. And it is true that when you're on your cycle and it's that time of the month, along with the cramps and the discomfort and all that other stuff, you get bloating. And you do put on pounds. You do put on a couple pounds. That's a big discussion because at a younger, especially for the amateur side, a lot of the younger girls may or may not know if they have a set cycle where, I mean, if you're on, say, birth control or something, you know exactly when your cycle is coming.
Yeah.
Some people have cycles that are irregular. So they don't know when it's coming.
That's right.
Because it's not the same time every month. So it's very hard to plan. Okay, well, I got to fight on June 20th. And, I had my cycle, 2 weeks ago, so I should be fine. Well, it's irregular. So, oops, day before it comes. So to have that fluctuation in situations like that might be helpful because a lot of, especially at a young age, unless like I at a young age went on birth control to regulate my cycle because it was so all over the place. Like I could bleed every week and then sometimes not for a month just because I don't know. I was so athletic young. I started late.
Yeah.
And then, so that's why they always said mine was so irregular because I was so athletic. So it makes it hard to prepare when you think you're good. And then all of a sudden it pops out of nowhere.
Yep.
So it might not be a bad thing to have that option in situations like that.
So every single tournament, we have one or two females who will leave the weigh-in in tears because they were on, 2 days ago on weight,
right,
and then had no control over it, and then couldn't make the weight.
I mean, I get the understanding.
It's often discussed. I don't know if there's a solution in there somewhere.
No,
but it's definitely an interesting topic.
I totally get the argument from the other side that they should know and they should prepare. But if you're not a female, well, first of all, if this is coming from men and you're not a female, you have no idea what we go through, or how painful it is to even have one.
Yep.
Just like you don't know what childbirth is like.
No, and you can imagine maybe a 15-year-old, 110-pound, that's a huge percentage change swing. You can't go and lose 2.5 pounds.
No, you can't. So in that scenario of if you are irregular, you're not going to know, period. Yeah. So you can't prepare for it properly. And the only way to fix that is if you go on, which a lot of parents do not want their children on it, even if it's just to regulate their cycle, because in long term, birth control can affect things and it can cause things and it can cause problems or issues or whatever the case may be. So some parents won't allow that. And if that's the case, I mean, I just was lucky enough that my mom was like, I had to go on it to regulate mine. So maybe we should try it. And then, down to the day when it's coming. I mean, because it tells you and it does that for you. But if they're not able to do that, I think it's not a bad idea to have a couple pounds.
So I guess what's great is that we're able to talk about this because we have those opportunities and we have this platform, and now we have an all-female event where we can get together and discuss these kinds of topics and push for 3-minute rounds. And that's one of the goals of this event is to come together, discuss what are the issues challenges that we have that are unique and create that networking and camaraderie.
Yeah. I mean, and that's a big thing. And people just don't understand that a lot of times, especially for women in their cycles, you just don't know. It's not regular. So there's no way to determine that situation if it's not the same time every single month. So that's a good thing that this should be brought on the table, and people should, I don't know, maybe make a vote or something, but I think it's a good idea. I know a lot of people that have struggled with weight where it came out of nowhere. I mean, I think Alicia Baumgartner had just talked about it like a couple of fights ago, how hers came out of nowhere like the day before. And she had a hard time with a fight. I mean, she made weight, but still had a hard time with the fight because of cramps and all that stuff that comes along with it. It's not easy.
And look, it's important for female fighters to consider this, but also we need to educate male coaches. Because so many male coaches coming, Mike, I don't know what's going on. I didn't get involved in that.
Well, if they're married and they got kids, I mean, kids, they should know something.
It's part of your weight management that you're working with your boxer to be on weight. You need to discuss these. You need to be open about it. And I don't know if there's an app to download to help you with it, but it's got to be out there. I think it's just great that we're even having the conversation.
Yeah, they should take a class on it for sure or something.
Hey, we missed a question.
Blood boxing. Thank you so much for joining in. Fistiana Fights says, what is the biggest difference between amateur boxing today and 20 years ago? That's a good question.
Yeah, that's a great question. So there's the obvious of the numbers and the opportunities, but what I want to focus in on is the perception of what is women's boxing. 20 years ago, it was, oh, hey, they didn't consider it boxing. There was swimmers. It was just wild. It was just kind of crazy going at each other. It wasn't skills and fundamentals, the sweet science. And that's what's changed the most now. Now, women come out in the proper stance and have been taught the same fundamentals that all other boxers, and the most important thing is it isn't women's boxing. It's just boxing, now, whereas in the past it was kind of oddity or spectacle, and that's my point about the 2-minute rounds. It's creating that separation, like it's different or not. It needs to just be one sport.
Proper training so much back then either, because trainers didn't take us seriously.
Yes. And then the other thing that I think is a huge difference is what a woman should expect when she walks into a gym. And there certainly is still a lot of problems there and room for improvement. But, 20 years ago, a woman walked in the gym and it was a lot different. And you had to put up with a lot of shit and a lot of a lot of bad remarks and a lot of sexism. And now I think that there should probably be, there's a different expectation. To be trained, exactly. Train alongside a man, just the same, and be trained by the trainer the same way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Neil the Deal says, great show, good job, great interview. Thank you so much for joining us, Neil. Let's see what else we got. Blood boxing, much respect to you and all fighters. Women boxing has went a long way. Totally agree. Thank you for joining us tonight. I appreciate you. Do you feel that amateur boxing really gets fighters ready for the pros? If so, many differences between the two. There is definitely 100% a huge difference between fighting in the amateurs and fighting in the pros. I mean, I'll let Mike kind of go first, but there's a big difference between fighting in the amateurs and pros, but I do think it helps.
So what it does is it instills fundamentals. Yeah. And it puts in that base for those boxers to be able to be true boxers. Yeah. Without that, then you have a difference in the two sports, the male and the female type of boxing. So that's the biggest difference. But it's a progression. You got to crawl, walk, run. So it's the same thing. You train for 3-minute rounds and then you work your way up. But you're right. There's the fundamental difference. Billy Walsh likes to say amateurs is more like a sprint. Three rounds, you can't lose a single round. You have to go for it. You got to be 100% at that opening bell, warmed up and ready to go. Whereas an amateur, they kind of walk out towards each other and they study what are the tendencies, what movements, precursor actions, and what patterns the boxers are going to. So the biggest difference is the strategy. So, but that comes in stages and in trainings. So the biggest thing that getting you ready for is the training. It's the fundamentals. It's the staying in shape, the making the weight, the process. Traveling and winning on the road and living in hotels and things like that. So there's fundamental similarities. But eventually you graduate and you need to break down your boxer and build up towards a knockout. And then the other obvious differences is where we wear bigger gloves and headgear. So there is less impact. So that does change the style of fighting of boxing. There isn't a jab doesn't sting as quite as much and have as an impact. You can't drive a boxer backwards as much, especially at the lower weights. So that affects strategy and whatnot.
Yeah, totally agree. But it's similar, to put it in perspective, with any sport that you do, whether it be football, basketball, softball, baseball, all of them, you always want to start off basically at the amateur level so that you can learn your basics, your fundamentals, you get that experience, you get the exposure, you get the growth of all of that to prepare you for if you go to the pros, then you're prepared because you've seen it, you've learned all your basic fundamentals, you've learned all this stuff. I guess the biggest difference for me personally from amateurs to the pros, for me, there wasn't a huge difference because amateurs, like he said, is 100% go. From opening bell to closing bell, you have to in order to win the rounds. So it's really just punch nonstop. And whoever gets the best of it at the end of that wins in the amateurs. I took that mentality with me into the pros. Not everybody can do that. But the pressure of an amateur fighter that you have taking it into the pros on someone who's boxing and technical, and moving around, a lot of times they can't handle the pressure because they switch to the pro style of boxing, moving, angles, all of this stuff. I kept that brawler style, and took that to the pros. And most people that I fought couldn't handle the pressure. So it's very beneficial to learn that style and to be able to use both styles if you need to. That way you can fight if you have to, and you can box if you have to. So it's very good. It's very good to do that and get that experience. Besides that, you can't go pro. Well, especially in today's day and age, you can't go pro unless you have so many amateur fights anyways. Um, I don't even think I had enough pro fights to go. I can't remember how many I had to have. But I was working with Sam Colonna at the time. And you had to have a experienced coach sign off that you were ready for the pros. If you didn't have so many fights. So that's how I went pro. But yeah, you definitely want to have some experience, in the amateurs before you decide to go pro. Fistiana also said, is the competition better in the amateurs or pros? I don't know. I'd say it's 50-50 now.
I would say today the amateur pool is a little deeper. So that creates more
today.
competition, more opportunities today, just because of where we are in kind of the evolutionary cycle. But I think that the competition in the pros has come a long way, especially in recent years in that regard as well. So what we haven't had in women's pro boxing is opponents like you have in men's boxing, where there's this guy isn't a contender. He's just there to get wins to build up someone's record. So that what that does is that creates much more fair matchups in the women's boxing. That there isn't as many gimme fights, right?
Yeah.
But as it evolves, there's going to be more opportunities. There's going to be more markets. There's going to be matchmakers and trainers out there that will train females just to be fodder and opponents. And then this will evolve and this will change over time.
Yeah, absolutely. Another question said, where would you like to see this women's championship tournament go or evolve into in the future?
So the answer is we'll see. I'm curious and really anxious to see how this tournament goes, how it's accepted. I'm really, like I said earlier, I'm super impressed with the numbers and the attention, and that's what's going to make or break this event is the women, the actual boxers. They want it. They'll participate in it, and they'll determine where it goes. Maybe some of the extra functions they don't want, or maybe they want a more pure competition, or maybe they want to add more ideas to it, and I'll get their feedback from it. Every event we do a post-event survey, and I'm sure I'll get feedback. So really, let's see how this one goes. What worked, what didn't work, and go from there. I would love to see it continue to be a natural event on the calendar. I don't want it to take away from female participation in the other tournaments, but I want this platform where it's fair, where women don't have to come to an event and sit around for 3 days for one match, where they can come there and box every day and then go home better. So maybe it will evolve to something that it continues to be something on the calendar. And then what I see this platform being is being opportunities at all levels. Like I said, we'll have peewee bouts, we'll have novice bouts, masters bouts, heavyweight bouts. So all aspects, but not just that. It'll create a platform for foreign boxers to come over. We don't have a citizenship requirement, and then also maybe it's an opportunity to showcase the high performance team, or Team USA versus Canada, for example, since we're in Toledo. Little plug. So things like that. It could create a platform. Where I really love to see it go is boxers like yourself, Brooke, to come to it and do meet and greets and inspire and continue to inspire those boxers. We're not far from Flint. Clarissa and O'Shea Jones is from Toledo. These kinds of boxers we've invited. Alicia Baumgartner's been invited from Detroit to come out there and be a part of the event and set up a table, sign some pictures, and take some photos. And because again, that's going to continue inspiring and giving giving an outlet for those boxers who work hard in the gym.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great idea. And it's very inspirational. And just the opportunity to even meet some of the past fighters is huge for young girls. So yeah, I would love that. That would be awesome.
You're welcome. Come on out.
What's your next overall goal for women's boxing after this?
Ooh, medals. That's the obvious one, right? Yeah, that's our ultimate goal, is back to the inspiring, not just the next boxers, but all Americans, to show them Olympic greatness in sport. So that's then the next goal is success on the world level, success in the Olympics, obviously for females. But the next goal is going to be, what's the next set of barriers to break down? And that 20% number is not good enough, right? So, 25% female participation at nationals, eventually, 30, 40%. But then as those boxers get older, become more coaches, we're seeing a shortage, especially in some communities, of coaching opportunities and female coaches. We've got females on our high performance team coaching staff, on our coaches education instructors, clinicians. And then, so the increase in those opportunities, but again, that's a generational thing. It's going to have to take a while. But then also, like we talked about earlier, more female referees, more female judges, and then more influence on committees and in rule making, so they can have more opinions in like the topics that we discussed earlier. So that's what's going to complete that whole cycle, build up the boxing, and then staying in the sport. How about more couples, more people that inspire boxing into their lifestyle and keep it into their that's what we're seeing a lot of is a lot of marriages that they're running gyms. You're seeing that all across amateur boxing, and that's what's beautiful and amazing. When people, it becomes their lifestyle and their journey, their calling, their purpose in the world, in life.
Yeah, absolutely. See, I got a couple more questions. It says, when you're ready to retire from the sport of boxing, what do you want to be remembered for? Well, Michael isn't a boxer. Me, I'm already retired. I've been retired for like 10, 11 years now. What do I want to be remembered for? Well, so my ultimate goal, not me. You're not talking to me. My ultimate goal was the Hall of Fame. Obviously, that's everybody's dream when they retire, to make the Hall of Fame. I was inducted into the Hall of Fame last year. So
I think you're doing it, Brooke. Bringing more people to the sport. That's what's
bringing more people to the sport. And we were just talking about the gyms. My husband got his coach's license and became my coach after towards probably like the middle of my pro career, because it was too far to travel to the gym. I was literally just going to Sam's gym for training or for sparring. And I was working out, doing mitts and all the workouts with him at home. So he went and got his coach's license. That way, I didn't have to pay a percentage of the purse. I didn't have to travel as far. Like, it was just more convenient. And so he got his coach's license and he became my only trainer. And me and him just did everything between management, setting up fights, and all of that. We have always wanted to have our own gym. It's just we don't have the funds for it. Running a gym is very costly.
Thankless. It's thankless.
Yes. And we just right now don't have the funds for it. But that has always been our goal when I retired, was to have our own boxing gym and train fighters. We just have not yet been so blessed to be able to do so. We do work with some fighters from time to time, like at other people's gyms, or just do, lessons with people or whatever, but just haven't been there. But yeah, just me. That's one of the reasons why I started the podcast, was to kind of bring recognition to the sport of women's boxing, past, current, future boxers, make people aware of all the things that happen in boxing. So just on the women's side. So that's kind of where we're at now. But eventually, I'd like to do more in the sport. It's just finding the time and the funds to be able to do so and give back. It's just not as easy as snap your fingers. Yep, I'm going to be a coach. I'm going to be a ref. Like, I'm going to do all this stuff. There's a lot of work, time it takes, and money. There's not a lot of funds
Yep.
A lot of it's out of pocket, and I just don't have that right now. So that's kind of where
Brooke,
we're
what
at.
I'll say about that is, I'm privileged to be able to see all the communities across the country. And the ones that I've been impressed with are ones that have, like we talked about Toledo earlier, is the ones that have municipal support. Cities like St. Louis, Youngstown, where the cities recognize the boxing tradition, that they've had, the lineage, the history, and then the difference it makes in the community. So grants and funding from city councilmen
Yeah.
is vital to those gyms thriving. And then gyms like in Nevada, where they have a grant program where they give back to the amateur programs for travel and things like that. So those are instrumental for those kinds of clubs to survive.
Absolutely, totally. Um,
I
I was
guess.
laughing because they said not you, Brooke, and I'm like, well, I don't know who you're talking to if you're not talking to me
Well,
because I'm the one
I
that's
don't think I'll
retired.
retire. I think I'll die in this position, right? But
Oh,
I
maybe
guess.
you're retiring from USA Boxing. I don't know.
Well,
Um,
before I joined USA Boxing, I sat with one of my mentors, Kenny Weldon, great coach. He was Vander Holyfield's
I
technical
guess
coach.
that's what he meant. Is what do
Yeah,
you when you retire from USA Boxing?
and he told me, and I asked him for advice before I went to USA Boxing, and he said, "Do what you say and say what you do.
Yeah,
Always follow through." And I guess that's really what I would most want to be remembered for, is that I was genuine, that people could trust me, that I felt like I inspired them, and gave them that platform to thrive upon, and help them achieve their goals.
yeah. Okay. Well, there we go, Michael. We hope we got that answered for you since I felt real kind of stupid for a second there. And like he's like, not you, and I'm like, but I'm the only one that's retired. Oh, okay. Wait a minute. Um, then we've got another question. See, if you tell you, let's see, tell you what, women's boxing is fire. This weekend was another great fight with Katie Taylor. Yes, it was. What happened? What happened, Michael? Oh,
Sorry, barking dogs. Sorry, I was just closing the door.
no worries. And then we've got it was fire. Great fights this weekend, all across the board. What do you think needs to change in amateur and women's pro boxing? You're right. The pool is very small in women's pro boxing, but that does give us better fights.
It does, but it doesn't allow us to have 40 no boxers. That's what will happen as boxing evolves. But what do we need to change? So the obvious things we talked about: the 3-minute rounds, the equality, the creation, and then of course the marketing needs to become equal. Boxing thrives on rivalries, personalities, those kinds of things need to really be grown. So some people criticize Clarissa, the way she carries herself, but nobody's criticizing some of the males who promote themselves that way. Yeah. So I mean, that's really what needs to come out, is some of these rivalries. It was kind of disappointing Taylor lost, because we were kind of starting to develop a rivalry there. But Michaela's got a rivalry going too, and I think Clarissa and Franchon are working on one. But that's what needs. Ali needed Frazier and Foreman and Norton. So that's really
Yeah.
what's needed.
So you get some of those trilogies. Those big
Why not?
trilogies.
Why not? Roll it back, do it again.
Do it again. Blood Boxing says 2 wins against Mia St. John, no mercy for real. Absolutely 100%. Twice. Beat her, 2 times. Yeah. First time I was a replacement fighter on a week's notice. Second time is when we brought home the WBC title from Mexico. She wanted the rematch in Mexico since I beat her the first time, and she thought it was, fixed, even though I was a replacement fighter. I wasn't even who she was fighting. But whatever the case may be, we went to Mexico, brought the belt home. That was that. You achieved that. Yes, I did, Michael. Thank you. Congratulations on your inductions. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. That was a huge, huge, huge accomplishment for me. Nice, much respect. Thank you all for that. I appreciate it. Michael says, thanks for everyone for chats. Any chance of becoming a trainer, promoter, or ambassador for women's boxers in boxing? Neil the Deal. Yeah, I just talked about that. My goal after boxing was to open a boxing gym and train females. I just still have yet, even though I've been retired for 10 years or so, a little bit more than 10 years, do not have the funds to run a gym. Basically, it's all out of pocket, and I just do not have the funds for that. If the opportunity comes where I can do that one day, I would absolutely love to do so. I would still even like to even get into, like he was saying, Mike was saying, the refereeing and all that stuff. Just something. I'm doing the podcast for now. That's a way for me to give back, let people hear all these amazing fighters' stories, learn about the behind the scenes BS that us females have dealt with from the past up to now. The stuff that people just don't know because we never talked about it. But we talk about it on my show. So if you go back and watch some of the past interviews with some of these fighters, you're going to hear some stuff that you've never heard before that we've had to go through. It's just me trying to bring light to other fighters, other generations, younger fighters coming up to learn the truth. Because when I went to the inductions, I had several amateur fighters come up to me and want to know what they can expect when they go pro. Granted, times have changed and it's better than it used to be. But they're like, please be honest with me. Like, we really want to know. So I told them some of the not so nice stories of things that we've had to deal with. That's just, I feel like they need to know the truth. So they know what to expect. They know what to look out for, different things. So that's my way of right now giving back. But eventually, maybe we'll get there. Let's see.
Well, you can come be an ambassador at the Toledo women's event. You're welcome there.
Oh, yes. So I'm gonna talk with Michael after this, and maybe we'll be working with him on some stuff there for this big
Okay.
tournament coming up. Talking fight boxing, I'm very grateful to have found the channel. Yes, Fistiana Fights, please join us every Tuesday night. We are here at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time every night, or every Tuesday at 8:30 Eastern Standard Time with a different guest every week. New sub I'll be following for now on. Well, thank you. I appreciate you guys. Great interview. Hall of Fame. Congrats. Thank you. He's back. Awesome. Yes, ma'am. Me and Miss Fiziana will share your channel. Please do. Please share my channel. Make sure you hit the subscribe button below and share it with everybody. I want my goal overall, one, is to get as many females and other boxing related people to watch the channel because there's so much to learn from every person that's on my show. One, but two, I want to get this out to as many young amateur female fighters as possible so they can hear these stories, learn about the pioneers of the sport, past fighters in the sport. I feel like one of the biggest things that today's pro amateur, like the new fighters of today's era in the pros has lost is its recognition and respect for pioneers and past boxers that came before them and the Olympics. The Olympics did not make boxing. The Olympics didn't make female boxing. It was great steps for boxing, but every one of us that came before put a brick in that pavement to get it to where it is today. It didn't happen overnight, and it didn't just happen because of the Olympics. We all worked very hard to get it where he is today, and I feel like a lot of the current fighters forget to mention that or even acknowledge that there was female boxing before them. So that's another reason why I want a lot of young fighters to get to the show and be able to hear these stories of some of these. I had Miriam Lamar on here. I mean, talk about a pioneer. She's like in her 70s. Just there's so many people that I've had on here, and I've even had amateur fighters on. I had Zion Hensley on a few weeks ago. So we get all different fighters, but all different stories, and they all tell a big part of boxing history. So that's where we're at with this. I know one of my last questions for you was about what they're asking about. What are your thoughts on women's boxing today and how far it's come with equality and all of that?
You know, one thing we didn't mention was the difference 20 years ago to today is box rec. You know, that's really really revolutionized the sport and brought people together and more awareness of boxers that are out there and creation of more matching and whatnot. So that's been an important way to grow the sport. So yeah, it's just keep progressing on that path and creating inspiration. Well, when I talked about early on and when we first started talking about my previous media role, one of my favorite interviews I did was with Ann Wolfe. And when she told me that about how she saw Christy Martin on television and a light bulb went off and she said, wow, women can box, and then went to a gym and started hitting a bag and how talked about how cathartic it was and how it was a release and it enabled her to thrive. That to me was inspirational. And so
Yeah.
this is kind of driven, all these things we've talked about is that process of creation of opportunity now then will inspire others to achieve their goals and become great, and then inspire others and create more opportunities and just keep growing and growing. So that's my answer.
Totally. Also, everybody that is tuning in tonight, yes, please make sure you like, follow, subscribe. No punches pulled with no mercy. But also, if you go on the Talk and Fight channel, there are tons of shows that Talk and Fight does. They're all boxing related. We've got Michael Orr. He has several shows on there. Literally, if anything you want to know about boxing, if you ask Michael on one of his shows, he can answer the question about any fighter. I mean, all the way down to like brand new people that I've never even heard of. He knows everything about every fighter. So he's got like several shows on Talking Fight. The Sugar Show is on here. Natalie Brown is also a previous fighter. There's so many different shows. But if you go to the Talking Fight, talkingfight.com or Talking Fight on YouTube, subscribe to their channel as well and check out some of the other hosts. But do make sure you subscribe to mine as well. Also, Michael, though, tell everybody, I don't know if you've got it ready yet or not, but tell everybody where they can get tickets or more information on if they want to come to the Historic Women's Championship in July.
So everything we have is on usaboxing.org, usaboxing.org. So that will have the announcement, the registration, and on the registration page has a synopsis of the event, what it's about, what the schedule will be. And then as the event gets closer, we'll create a itinerary on that page, more information about purchasing tickets. Our tickets are pretty standard at an event. It's $10 a day, which includes two boxing sessions, typically noon and 6 p.m., and then $50 for the week pass. So that's a pretty good deal. We'll be in the Toledo City Convention Center, which is a Glass City, recently rebranded Glass City Convention Center in downtown Toledo. It's going to be July 22nd through 29th. I believe competition starts the 24th through the 29th in Toledo, home of O'Shea Jones, our most recent female Olympic medalist, and now pretty good young pro.
Yeah, awesome. Is there anything that you would like to talk about that we didn't talk about or you'd like to tell people about before we wrap things up today?
No, the big thing I wanted to slide in there was that Pee Wee co-ed discussion. So I was glad we got that in there.
Yeah.
No, but again, thank you, Brooke, for what you're doing to put eyes on the sport and to keep reflecting to the past and creating that reform. Without knowing our history, we don't know how to improve the path in the future. But this is what's important. We have to realize that all parts of the circle have to be healthy for us to continue that growth and expansion. It can't be a 99 1% type sport. This has to be and then the other thing is all of us in the sport need to realize that we all have the same goals and objectives. We're all really on the same page, even though a lot of times we're all kind of debating and fighting over maybe the same rewards or the same sliver of the pie. We need to realize that we're all friends and family, and that we're inspiring each other and pushing each other to be better. This sport has plenty of obstacles and enemies outside of our ranks. So we don't need to fight within our sport. We need to grow and continue to inspire each other and create opportunities together and camaraderie and keep making not just our current sport great, but also ensuring its longevity and its health for not just the current generation that's coming up, but even their children and their next generation.
Yeah.
It's just like those pioneers did before us. We have a responsibility to them to continue this health of the sport, and then to make sure it thrives for the future.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely been a pleasure having you on. I was super excited to learn some stuff about the amateur games. I haven't even thought about the amateur games in decades, but yeah, it's been super fun learning about some of the changes and the things that are going on. Michael said he interviewed O'Shea Jones before. She's a beast.
Yeah, she really is. She's one to keep an eye on. Her brother, Otha Jones, has been very successful. And of course, Charles Cromwell's in that camp as well. But, Ohio runs boxing, and that whole Toledo group thrives in all the way up in Detroit, obviously boxing tradition there. But Jared Anderson from Toledo is doing great. And you mentioned Zion, and she's thriving out of Youngstown.
Yeah.
Cleveland boxers, Morel McCain. I think that she's on our current high performance team. But yeah, the entire state and is a bunch of beasts in Ohio.
Absolutely. Let's see. Fistiana said again, thank you both, and thank you, Talk and Fight Boxing. It's been a blessing to find y'all. I appreciate it. Yes. Make sure everybody that's listening follow Talk and Fight, and also follow me directly, No Punches Pulled with No Mercy, to catch me every Tuesday, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. She rated herself out.
Ratted
herself out to her about cheating on a run. Oh, I remember you telling me about that, Michael. I remember you telling me about that story.
I won't tell, Coach.
Don't tell. Shh. It's a secret, even though we just told it to the world. Because we're live streaming on, 19 or 20 streams nationwide. So I guess everybody knows now, but we will keep it a secret anyway. But I appreciate you so much for your time. I know you're busy. I know you're working on so much stuff. Thank you for coming on the show with me today. We'll be in touch and talk about the upcoming show and see what we can get worked out.
Awesome. Thanks, Brooke. Thanks, everyone, for being part of it.
Take care. All right, everybody. Thank you again so much for joining me tonight. Fistiana, Blood Boxing. I think Neil. Who else was in here? Michael, of course, my favorite all-time Michael, for tuning in. Neil the Deal. Everybody that's new in here, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I appreciate every single one of you. I hope y'all enjoyed the show tonight. Please definitely like, subscribe, and share to the show. Spread the word. Share it so we can get some more people in here and spread the love of boxing, female boxing, that is. There also is now a donate button below. If you feel like donating, goes directly to me and my show. If not, no worries, no big deal here. But I definitely hope you enjoyed it. Make sure that you are following me on all my social media platforms. I have 2 on all platforms. My Brooke, No Mercy, Dierdorff #Millbrook. And then I also have No Punches Pulled with No Mercy page. 2 separate pages. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, all platforms have both pages. Make sure you follow those. I do post every week prior to the show who's coming on the show, and a little bit about a description of what we're going to be talking about on the show, so you can see ahead of time who's coming on. Also, if you subscribe, you'll get that as well. But I appreciate every single one of you for tuning in with me every week here, Tuesday. But guess what? I will see y'all again same place, same time, next Tuesday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time with the next episode of No Punches Pulled with me, No Mercy. But until then, punch hard, because nothing else matters. Good night, y'all.